Hey everybody, welcome to Breakfast All Day. Christy and Alonso. It's Oscar season, and of course, one of the big nominees this year, I think the most nominated film this year is Jane Campion's The Power of the Dog. And there is still conversation happening regarding people who are confused by the ending of the film. So we thought we would tackle that. Obviously, you can't talk about the end of the movie without spoiling the shit out of it. So if you haven't seen The Power of the Dog yet, turn us off now, go to Netflix, watch the movie, come back. But here be spoilers. Let's be very clear about that.
Yes. So yeah, there is some confusion to it because it is so subtle and it does not spell out what happens. But if you've been following along carefully, you know that Cody Smit-McPhee's character has sort of subtly insinuated himself with the hyper macho and abusive Benedict Cumberbatch in 1920s Montana. And at first, Benedict Cumberbatch teased him for being effeminate and for being fragile in his opinion, but we know why that is now, because it made him think of the side of himself that he didn't want to acknowledge.
Right.
But Cody Smit-McPhee, he's smart and he sees that and he watches
He's a medical
student. He watches everything. And so what he has done is, while he's learning how to ride a horse and while he's learning how to braid a rope, he also goes off on these little rides on his own. He sees a cow, a dying, sick cow out on one of the trails, and he takes a little bitty piece of the tissue from the cow. And we already know that he is kind of teaching himself about medicine, about surgery. We saw him capture and skin a rabbit just to dissect it earlier in the film.
He's got notebooks of drawings and,
Right. And so what he has done is, after, so in a smolderingly tense and sexy scene where they share a cigarette in the barn and Phil is teaching him how to braid, you see that later on, he gives him the lasso. He finishes the lasso for him. Let me finish this for you. And then Phil comes down sick and doesn't even make it to the hospital. He dies on the way. And at the very, very end of it, the brother played by Jesse Plemons learns he died of anthrax poisoning. Right. And Jesse's like, there's no way, or George rather, is like, there's no way, because he was so careful all the time and he would never go near any kind of sick animal. And then one of the last shots you see is Cody Smit-McPhee reaching down. This beautiful shot from beneath the bed in this very low light. He reaches down with gloves on to grab the lasso that he had made for Phil.
Booyah.
Right. So if you're paying attention, all that he stealthily from the very, very beginning was planning this thing out.
Yeah.
Our good friend Kyle Buchanan, who's going to be on here next week talking about his Mad Max Fury Road book, had an excellent observation on Twitter, which is that probably a lot of folks watch it on Netflix, and they watch it on Netflix the way they watch everything on Netflix. Like they go to the kitchen to get a drink, or they are folding laundry and they're not paying attention to
their phone
how exquisitely subtle this film is. So did you get that the first time around? Because when I first saw it, I was like, but I saw it in the screening room, so I was immersed by it all.
I watched it on Netflix, but I got it mainly because it's interesting. I think, and I haven't seen a lot written about this, but I think that gay guys get this movie faster than other people do.
Like you are too straight.
Well, no, like the second that Benedict Cumberbatch comes in and starts goofing on Cody Smit-McPhee about his flowers and blah, blah, you're like, oh, I see you. I know who you are. I know exactly what you're about. And so when it's revealed later in the film, when he's going to talk about Bronco Henry and you see his muscle mags, it's like, yep. And so Cody Smit-McPhee, exactly, and you also know who Cody Smit-McPhee is, and you can tell that he's going to be playing a long game when he starts ingratiating himself with this guy. So to me, it all fit together, and it was all perfectly of a piece. But yeah, you do have to be paying attention to the clues. And The Wrap did a piece this week by Joe McGovern talking about how apparently Jane Campion during shooting was a little uncertain that audiences would completely get it, and actually went one step further in sort of trying to explain it, but then later decided not to use that shot. But she basically comes up with what was originally going to be the last shot of the film, which very much kind of visually quotes how the book ends.
Okay, so I got the book. So literally the last shots of the movie were going to be the last scrap of the book, which is in those black books. One August afternoon, he had found that anthrax, black leg, they called it out there, was a disease of animals communicable to man, and that it finds its sure way into the human bloodstream through cuts or breaks in the skin from a man's handling the hide of a diseased animal, as when perhaps a man with damaged hands will use a diseased hide in braiding a rope. Okay, so the book spells it out, and the film was going to spell it out too, but I love this interview you guys have with the editor of the film, the Oscar-nominated editor of the film, who explains like, let's not show that.
What if we didn't? He said, we had it in the cut. And as an editor, to be honest, I was kind of on the fence about losing it. I was thinking, oh, some people in the audience won't get this without the anthrax definition. But at the same time, we were railing against it. And it says, as much as the revelation works on the last page of Savage's novel, quote, it felt kind of like a really basic idea, unquote, on the screen.
Yeah.
Campion and her editor, whose name is,
Peter.
I need the first name. It's Severus. Peter Severus.
Peter Severus.
Tinkered with the editing so the film included more subtle clues in the Peter subplot regarding his intentions to kill Phil, quote, and then we got to the point where our main consideration was that we wanted the audience to be looking around at everything at the end and not coming in on one specific thing. So not the word anthrax being the last image of the film, but instead Peter looking at Rose and George in the window. It felt like more of a mystery.
Yeah, I mean, I totally got it and was like then excited to go back and rewatch it and pick up all those clues along the way, because it's so exquisitely subtle, which is so true of the cinematography and the editing and just the performances and everything about it. But I love that they didn't necessarily spell it out, you know, and they established so cannily that like this is a man who, you know, despite his Ivy League education, is like a rough and tumble guy.
Mhm.
You see him physically castrating bulls or cows rather without gloves.
No, bulls. You don't castrate a
Is
cow.
it bulls? I'm sorry. Whenever he's castrating, he's not using gloves.
Exactly.
Right? So his hands are rough, right? They've established that.
Cody Smit-McPhee's character is smart enough to realize that not only is this guy like a self-loathing closet case, but that he's also very performatively macho and does all this stuff without the gloves on and his raw, calloused hands. And he puts all those pieces together and do not mess with that guy.
No, but that's how Bronco Henry would do it without gloves.
Exactly. So there you go.
Anyway, so let us know. We'll link to our Power of the Dog review down below. I want to say thanks to Jason Ration for suggesting that we have this conversation, because I've wanted to do this, but I didn't want to spoil it. We've had folks say like, do the spoiler conversation. So here we are, we're doing it. But I'll link to our full previous review below. Let us know what you thought of the ending. Let us know if you caught it that first time. Let us know if you were like, huh? And if so, that's okay. It's very subtle. But yeah, chime in the comments.
Absolutely. And thanks for watching, you guys. Subscribe, click the bell, follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out our Patreon at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. We spoil everything because we assume you've seen the show by that point. But currently we're talking about The Gilded Age and Pam and Tommy, but there's a lot of fun stuff coming up. You don't want to miss it. Patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.